Okay, there we go. Welcome to Patriots Corner Live with Dr. Hill Law, your source for unfiltered conservative analysis. I hit my wrong button. We're here to dissect this week's biggest stories in politics and the economy, all from a ground up conservative perspective. No spin, just straight talk about what matters to you. We'll delve into the issues shaping our nation, hold our leaders accountable, and discuss and debate the solutions that uphold our core American values. If you're new here, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring bell, notification bell, so you don't miss any future streams. I would like to the government is playing a high stakes game of chicken with your money, and you're the one stuck in the middle of the road. This isn't a metaphor, and it's no exaggeration. Right now, a fight is raging in Congress that will decide the future of your wallet, the security of this nation. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about a battle for the fiscal soul of America. On today's special episode of Patriots Corner with Dr. Hill Law, I will analyze and dissect the monumental differences between the versions of the House and Senate budget bill and which version benefits the American taxpayers the most. Furthermore, I will provide a comprehensive examination of the political implications along with the inherent risk of our national security and defense of our homeland. Join me as we navigate the complexities of the different budget bill versions and the potential impact for the fabric of our economy. Well, to the fabric of our economy. You can catch Patriots Corner Live 3 evenings a week on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and Facebook. If you can't catch us live, you can listen to it all the episodes on Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio approximately an hour after they air live, or you can catch them on our website at patriotscorner with drhillaw.com. Again, that is Patriots Corner with drhillaw.com. Your engagement is crucial to the success of Patriots Corner. If you have a question or want to make a statement, please do so. I'll review them at the end of each segment, reading a few live and answering questions from respectful comments that foster intellectual debate. Your feedback is invaluable in shaping the discussion. Also, don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to keep the conversation going. Like I said, usually it's 3 days a week, but I'm doing a 4th day this week because of everything that's going on with the budget bill. So this is... so I said a special episode. So a war is brewing on Capitol Hill. Now, not with tanks and soldiers, but a fiscal war, a knockdown, drag-out fight over the 2025 federal budget. Think of it like two families planning their financial future. One side you have is the House of Representatives. Their plan is like a family that seeing their credit card debt piling up decides to cut subscriptions and eat out less. Acknowledges the crushing reality of our national debt. On the other side, the Senate, their budget is like the family next door that, despite being deep in debt, decides to finance a new sports car and a trip around the world. It is so disconnected from reality, so fiscally reckless, it can only be called a declaration of war on the American taxpayer. This isn't just a policy disagreement. This is a betrayal. To go ahead and get started with section 1, the great betrayal, defining the battlefield. To grasp the sheer scale of this betrayal, you have to understand the battle lines. Imagine 2 architects are hired to design America's financial future. Earlier in 2025, the House and the Senate each drew up a blueprint, a budget resolution. After some debate, they agreed on a final design in April, but the instructions for how to build it are worlds apart. As if one architect designed a sturdy, practical home while the other designed a fantasy castle built on quicksand. The mainstream media will tell you this is just typical partisan bickering. Don't believe them. This is a deep philosophical canyon. The Republican-led House is operating in the real world, a reality where you have to pay your bills, where debt has real consequences. Their blueprint will not, while not perfect, is an attempt to pull back from the fiscal cliff. It calls for trillions in spending cuts to pay for lower taxes and a stronger military. It's a dose of fiscal medicine. The Senate, however, has chosen fantasy over fact. Their plan isn't a budget. It's a Christmas list with no price tags, paid for with a credit card that has no limit. The Senate's instructions show a shocking level of complacency. They call for a measly $4 billion in gross spending reductions. Let me put that in perspective. The government spends trillions. Finding only $4 billion in cuts is like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teaspoon. It's not a rounding error. It's a slap in the face. And where does that lead? to a mountain of new debt. According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the Senate's plan could greenlight a stunning 5.8 trillion net deficit increase over the next 10 years. All right, so some estimates suggest the final bill could pile over 4 trillion onto our debt. This isn't just irresponsible, it's generational theft. They are taking out a mortgage on our children's future, knowing full well they have no intention of ever paying it back. It's a lot of the stuff they can't do, a lot of the stuff they cannot do through a continuing resolution or an omnibus budget. They have to do them through actual appropriations bills, but still they're going, it's getting ridiculous. This whole fight boils down to three things: your taxes, our military, and the runaway train of government waste. In every one of these areas, the House is fighting for you while the Senate is fighting to protect the swamp. The difference aren't small, they're monumental, and you need to see them to understand the truth depth of the Senate's betrayal. While the Senate is trying to act, this is going off script, but while the Senate is sitting here trying to act like the House isn't doing enough, in reality, they are backtracking what the House is doing and trying to add more spending, more debt, more everything for them. They're seriously screwing up the budget to where it's going to be near impossible to get through the House. So then we're going to have to go to a combined resolution agreement for them to try to fight that out to get another bill to be voted on between the House and the Senate. So this could end up dragging on another month or two the way the Senate's going, instead of leaving the budget bill the way it was and not making it worse. So as we come to the end of our first segment, I would like to remind you to please like, comment, follow, or hit the subscribe button so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now take any questions on reply to a few comments before I start the next segment. Like I said before, please don't forget to check out our website at Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. That's Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. Also, you can sign up for free to access our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live show, and hit the subscribe button, which takes you to our locals community. There you can support the show, gain access to extra content, and participate in one-on-one discussions. Let me take a break for a second, get a drink. How many people we got? One. So one on each. Or just one person, really? It says one person, and shows I got one person there. What else did I show? We got anybody in I got anybody in here? All right, no, I don't see any. Doesn't show me anybody in that chat. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get on to segment 2. The taxpayer heist, unpacking the tax plans. Let's start with what hits closest to home: your taxes, the money you sweat for every day. This budget battle is really about a simple question: who has the rightful claim to that money, you or the government? Now, the House Republican plan is built on a powerful idea: the money you earn is the fuel for your family. They want to make sure your tank is full. The centerpiece is making the 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent before they expire at the end of 2025. This would lock in about 3.8 trillion in tax relief over the next decade. For the average American family, that translates to a tax cut of about $2,900 in 2026. That's real money for groceries, gas, or saving for the future. It's a direct investment in you. The plan also gives a bigger deduction to small pass-through businesses, the engine of our economy, helping them grow and hire. It's a pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family plan. Now, for the average American family, that translates to a tax cut, like I said, about $2,900. And what in the world happened there? I mean, I'm sorry. That was weird. Okay. All right. So the answer lies in their priorities, and nothing reveals their true colors more than their obsession with the SALT deduction. Think of it this way: SALT, or the state and local tax deduction, is like a special loophole for a potluck dinner. It mostly helps the wealthiest people in high tax states like California and New York. The 2017 tax cut rightly capped this so taxpayers in fiscally responsible states weren't forced to subsidize the lavish spending of poorly run ones. It ensured everyone brought their family fair share to the table. Now, the Senate's plan does get rid of this. It takes the gap down to like 10,000. The deduction for SALT plan on the congressional side was to increase it up to like $40,000 for anybody making under like 400,000. The Senate's plan keeps it where it is, but blows the cap way high. So it's a direct transfer of wealth from middle class families in the heartland to millionaires in Beverly Hills and the Hamptons, rewarding states for the bad decisions. And that brings us to the worst part, the debt. The House budget at least tries to be responsible, demanding up to $2 trillion in spending cuts to help pay for its tax relief. It runs on the simple principle that you can't have your cake and eat it too. Where the Senate doesn't believe in that. Their budget is a recipe for fiscal ruin, allowing for a deficit increase that could hit a jaw-dropping 5.7 trillion. They aren't just failing to balance the checkbook, they are actively lighting it on fire. This isn't a policy proposal, it's an anchor that will draw down our economy for generations. It's a heist plan, plain and simple. Now, as we come to our end of our second segment, I'd like to remind you to please like, comment, follow, or hit the subscribe button so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now take any questions. Don't really see anybody else in here right now. So if anything, please don't forget to check out our website at Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. That is Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. And I will go ahead and get set up to segment 3. Get on segment 3. A tale of the two militaries' national security on the line. All right. The betrayal doesn't stop with your wallet. It extends to the most fundamental job of the government, national defense. In a world growing more dangerous by the day with threats from China, Russia, and Iran, a strong military isn't a luxury, it is a necessity. Now, on this, there is a silver sliver of agreement. Both the House and Senate propose increasing defense spending, with some plans adding nearly $150 billion. That's a long overdue step and a win for the conservative view that peace comes through strength. But this surface level agreement hides a deep and dangerous divide. The question isn't just if we should spend more, but how we pay for it. The House approach is about matching strength with responsibility. Their budget is aggressive and boosting military funding because they see the threats clearly. It puts billions towards more ships, restocked ammunitions, and better quality of life for our troops. But the crucial difference is the House insists that we pay for it. It's like buying a new essential security system for your home and paying for it by canceling streaming services you don't use. They tie defense increases to real cuts in bloated, wasteful, non-defense budget. This is what fiscal discipline looks like. Now look at the Senate. Their proposed increase is more moderate in a world on fire. Moderate is just another word for too little, too late. A moderate approach to deterring our adversaries is an invitation for more aggression. But the bigger sin is their total refusal to pay for any of it. They want the new fighter jets and destroyers, but they won't make a single tough choice to afford them. They just want to slap the entire cost onto our national credit card. This is not only fiscally irresponsible, it is strategically stupid. A nation buried in debt is economically weak, and an economically weak nation can't sustain a strong military. The Senate is trying to build a world-class engine, but wants to power it with watered-down gasoline. It will eventually sputter and fail. By refusing to deal with our spending crisis, they are building a military on a foundation of sand. Now, soon, the interest payments on our national debt will cost more than our entire defense budget. How can we project strength to the world when we're crumbling from within? The House gets it. They know fiscally strong and strength and military strength are two sides of the same coin. The Senate plan, in its cowardice, weakens both. As we come to the end of our third segment, I'd like to remind you to please like, comment, follow, or hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. Also, I will now take any questions and reply to few comments before starting the next segment. Don't forget to check out Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. That is Patriots Corner with drhilllaw.com. Also, sign up for our free access to our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live show, and hit that subscribe button, which takes you to our locals community. There you can support the show, gain access to extra content, and participate in one-on-one discussions. I mean, the bill that pretty much, considering the Senate and the House agreed on the same, had to agree on a joint resolution with matching budgets for each one. they should have been pretty easily be able to put out the same bills coming out of each committee or similar bills. Now, like they said, the big difference is the Senate only wanted to show like $4 billion, a guarantee of $4 billion in cuts, where the House was wanting a guarantee of $2 billion in cuts. So that's where that came at. But this weekend, the Senate's trying to change so much crap on this bill that we're losing House Republicans on the House side, that even if they do get a bill back to the House, it's going to take so much finagling and moving around to even get the House to get approved that literally what they're going to have to do is put another joint committee together to come down to a bill, and they're going to have to revote the Senate and the House, because I don't think with the form it's in right now, coming out of the Senate and how much they've screwed with it, that the House will actually pass the bill. Now, neither one of these bills are great. Neither one of these bills truly help with our spending or our borrowing. But see, here's the problem is the stuff that needs to be taken care of, which mainly has to do with social services, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, all those type of things, food stamps, all that, you cannot touch in this type of bill. You need to have do it through an appropriations bill, which takes a supermajority in the House and the Senate, which means you need about 67 senators and 247 House members to vote for it. And obviously, Democrats don't want to reach across the aisle. They don't want President Trump getting any wins. I mean, they couldn't even stand President Trump getting a win when he attacked Iran. They had to say that, they're only set back a couple months, but yet they were again saying that they weren't even nowhere a couple months near having a nuclear weapon. But now they say we only set them back a couple months from getting a nuclear weapon. Make up your minds. All right. The left just can not stand President Trump getting a win, even if they have to insult our military while they're at it, and our military men and women, when literally they've created the bunker buster bombs specifically for that job. They literally have been planning this for 15 years. It just happened to be ready now. So get on your senators and make sure that they stop playing with all this stuff. Some of the stuff they're trying to do bigger with as far as waste, fraud, and abuse goes on Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, I understand that. But the problem is the majority of it is going to take a bipartisan bill. That's not going to happen. If you were to cut all of our discretionary defense budget, not pay the House or the Senate, cut all that stuff, you could only save 6 months in spending. Over 60% of our current spending and spending budget right now is Medicaid, Medicare, borrowing budget is Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. If you cut all the spending, you could only save 6 months of our total budget. The majority of it is because of Medicaid and Medicare. So let's get on to segment 4, the Phantom Menace, the Senate's war on waste reduction. Now, if you want to know what a political party really believes, don't listen to their speeches. Our debt is so bad. If they don't cut Medicaid, there is no way to fix it. Right? Period. There's the numbers don't lie. There was actually, I forgot his name now, because I did a live on it here a while back. I did a podcast about it here a while back, but roughly, here's a good example. Okay. The average family household through their whole life will pay about $166,000 into the Medicaid, Medicare system. Between the time they retire and the time that they pass away, the government will pay out over $555,000. Okay. So that's almost right around $400,000 per household that the government is paying above what it actually got. Now, what got us in trouble with the Social Security plan is back in like 2023, they had to pull out $1 trillion or something like that they had to pull out a lot of money out of the Social Security thing to pay the retirees, but they didn't put any money back in. So it's not like they were took out from it, but they never put anything back in. They didn't put in the budget to put back in what was supposed to be put back in. So as of right now, the Social Security program will go insolvent in 2034. That means in 2035, the seniors will have a 20% cut to their retirement pay, which means that it will more than double the poverty rate of our seniors. All right. And that's going to increase even more borrowing, because we're going to have to borrow all that money to get to keep paying out Social Security at a 20% rate cut. So if we do not do something with Medicaid and Medicare, whether that's cutting spending, figuring out how to get the cost of drugs and the cost of medical care down, whether we figure out how to cure type 1, type 2 diabetes, because that's like type 1 and type 2 are some of the most common and most expensive elderly chronic diseases that we see in elderly that cost a lot more money than anything on the Medicaid, Medicare budgets. So that's what the problem is. We've either got to do something with cutting the plan, whether that's increasing the age from 65 to 70 for people who are under the age of 40 years old or 45, just like they did back in the early 90s, is what they did. You can't raise just taxes. If you just raise taxes, it wouldn't do it, because the left raised taxes, but we've still been in the same problem for over and over. It's the same repeat. You can't raise taxes enough to do it. You can raise tax, cut the spending, you're still not going to get the problem fixed, period. We're talking in 5 to 7 years, our interest is going to be $2 trillion, which is 155% of our GDP. I got to remember what the guy's name was. I can't remember the senator's name. He was the senior on the committee for the Ways and Means Committee. He's out of Arizona. He did a whole speech on in front of Congress, put out all the numbers, had he's got the graphs form and everything. And if you just watch it, even if you don't understand numbers, you're not a finance or economic person, he makes it really easy to understand, breaks it down really nice and easy to see that there's just no way that just cutting spending will help or just raising taxes will help. There's a whole lot more that's got to be done. It's borrowing and spending overall. If you look at it, before COVID, the deficit was around 1.2 trillion, just barely over a trillion. Now, during COVID, it went up to 3 trillion. But even when Biden was in, did he cut it back down to the original 1.2, 1.4? No, he left it at 2. So see, we went way up during the deficit, raised almost more than doubled during COVID, which makes sense because we couldn't have the economy crash and we couldn't have people out on the streets all over the place because of all the people they were making stay home. So they had to spend money to keep people from being too hurt. And then when COVID was over, instead of going all the way back down to that 1.2 or 1.4, we only cut it back down to about 1.92 trillion. And that was under a Democratic president. So even the Democrats didn't cut back down enough. And they've tried this. I'm 41 years old. I can remember back when they used to raise taxes, because see, the thing is you raise taxes, your GDP goes down. You might bring in a little more money, but not as much as you think you're going to, because businesses will start closing. The economy will slow down. It works both the same ways. When you lower taxes, you might increase your GDP. The question is how much you're going to increase your GDP to make up for the increased deficit from those tax cuts. It's a balance either way, because you're more likely to lower your GDP from tax cuts, you're less likely it's going to drop more if you raise taxes than how much it's going to raise if you drop taxes. Now, it doesn't always raise as much as you think, but that's just the balancing act that they've got to do it. But we can't just raise taxes. We're in too large of a debt crisis. I mean, right now, if you look at the whole world's in debt. It's not just the United States. Go over in Europe, look at them. I mean, right now we have more debt worldwide than right before the Napoleonic Wars, or during the Napoleonic Wars. And if you actually look at history, right after the Napoleonic Wars was like 20, 30 years of famine and poverty because everybody pretty much went dead broke. Everybody had so much debt and the economy's just crashed. So if the Republicans and Democrats don't come together, this is going to have to be a bipartisan thing. And both sides have got to quit pushing the lies, tell the truth. There's not enough rich people just to raise the taxes on them. GDP is not based off of tax money, okay? GDP is based off of jobs and companies. And I'm sorry, if I'm a business owner and I'm rich, If you tax me a certain amount, up to a certain amount, I'll stay here and I'll keep creating jobs. You raise those taxes above a certain amount, I'm going to quit giving more jobs. I'm going to start laying people off. I'm going to quit paying as much. I'm going to cut benefits, or I'm just going to move the hell out of the country. Take my money somewhere else, or I'm going to sell my company and go retire, buy an island and retire. That's the problem with going after rich people. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. If you want to get fed, you can't keep trying to steal money from them. It doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. Look at all the countries in the South America. It doesn't work. You can do it to a certain point, but all these so-called rich people on the Democratic side saying, "Oh, I'll pay more taxes." No, you won't, because you don't need the taxes to be raised to pay more taxes. You can pay more taxes just by doing it. And the funny thing is when they raise the taxes, it's not the rich people that pay more. It's the middle class people. It's the smaller corporations, the smaller companies that really don't have that large of a profit margin. They might bring in 2-3 million a year, but by the time they pay everything out, cover all of their inventory, cover all their payroll, all their benefits, all the cost of their building, mortgage, all that, they might take a couple $100,000 home. But the big companies who make the billions and the trillions of dollars, they've always got nice little cutouts in them for tax breaks for owning a private jet or owning a yacht or whatever. And then they never pay any more taxes. Our best bet is to go to a flat tax where everybody pays the same amount per their income, percentage of their income, with no deductions. Because you've got people who don't pay hardly any taxes in, but get back more money than they paid in taxes because of tax credits for child tax credits and all that. Then you've got people who pay lots of money in, but because of all of the tax deductions and everything that they get written in on there that they qualify for, they end up paying hardly any taxes, where the smaller company that's your mom and pop down the store that lives next door to you that runs a major company but not a corporation, they're the ones that get killed by those tax hikes, not the big rich guy that still's not paying any taxes. If they raise the federal income tax, it's the target inflation. You don't want it to be raised. Inflation has nothing to do with the tax with GDP or making money. Inflation costs you, it screws the economy, slows it down, everything. As far as raising the federal interest rates, you don't want to do that. You want to lower the interest rate. Why do you think President Trump has been on the Fed about lowering the interest rate? Because of the fact of just a couple points. If we're about to have to borrow more money to pay our debt, that's literally what this budget bill is over, is having to borrow money to cover our debt, to raise the debt limit, borrow more money. But when we do that, whatever the interest rate is locked in at, that interest rate is locked in at that for 9 or 10 years until we pay it back. And right now, just 1 or 2 percentage points on the federal debt, on the federal rate, cost billions, hundreds and billions of dollars, instead of where if they cut it a basis point, if we'd already lost about a basis point, the interest might be 5, 7, 800,000 instead of 1.2 trillion, 1.3 trillion. You're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in savings there because of the Federal Reserve rate being dropped, because that's what the government has to pay to borrow that money. Plus, whoever's buying it from a little bit more to borrow that money. And that's so the lowering the Fed rate, that helps lower our interest that we pay. It'll help us pay less interest or owe less interest in the future. But as far as the inflation rate, and I don't even know where they got this 2% inflation, 3% inflation. It was some arbitrary number that an economist down in Australia back in the 90s came up with. And ever since then, they've been stuck on this 2-3% number. Now, what the funny thing is, everybody's going, oh, because prices haven't dropped down that much, that inflation's not gone. Well, see, that's where people are wrong. They don't understand economics. The only way the prices will go down now is if you have deflation, which is bad, because that means your economy is really going bad if the prices having to start drop. Dropping inflation, all that means is the rising of the prices quit rising. That means your increase of prices slow down. You don't actually have your prices drop back down. You just have your prices not rise as fast. So when you lower inflation, you're not going to drop your pricing your cost in the stores or whatever back down to what you were paying a year or two ago. Gasoline, that's a different story because that's price per barrel of oil, stuff like that. Then you've got city and county taxes, state, federal taxes tacked on top of that. So depending on what area you live in, how many taxes are added on to the top of the price per barrel of oil, or then price per barrel plus then the price per liter or gallon of actual gasoline once it's been refined. So that can drop and fluctuate pretty well, but your cost of clothes, shoes, underwear, most of your food and stuff like that, it's not going to severely drop. It's just not going to keep rising as fast. That's where your inflation. So the inflation doesn't. The really only way inflation helps to a point is if the inflation stops rising as much and your income start rising more than your inflation, then people can afford to spend more, and then that helps your GDP go up. Ukraine, I we're that place right now. It's if it was something that if Trump had been in back before it started, maybe there had been something we could do. But now that there's so much blood and treasure been spilled on both sides, and the one side is a nuclear powerhouse that arguably could have as many, if not more than us, because obviously they're not telling us about every nuclear weapon they have. Who knows if they truly destroyed how many that they were supposed to? Do they have any hidden? Who knows to a point. So there's not much we can do with Russia because Vladimir Putin's the kind of crazy guy that would start a nuclear war if we went a little too far. And he lives in a country where if he tries to give up too much, he'll look weak. And whether it's his country people try to push him out or somebody below him on his military pushes him out, he's got to look at his thing. So there's only so much we can do. We can keep funding and helping Ukraine, but they're never going to win. They're just going to keep going. And eventually the Ukrainians will be wiped out because Russia's got triple the amount of people, triple the amount of money, triple the amount of equipment. Russia can keep drafting and drafting and drafting. Eventually, Ukraine, as small as they are, I mean, they're not much bigger. Russia's the size of America, if not bigger. I mean, obviously, the majority of the country's unlivable. It's up in the Arctic Circle or frozen tundra and stuff. But still, land-wise, Russia is huge. Ukraine is probably, I don't even think it's as big as Texas. I mean, Ukraine's not that big, really, when you look at the overall size of it. So it would be hard. It's so hard to say what we can do in Ukraine because, yeah, they've lasted this long, but eventually it's going to have to come down to they're going to have to be willing to give up something to get Russia to back out and get Russia to leave because Russia's not going to. He was pretty much had told his people that, oh, this will take a week. We'll just the people won't want to fight back. He's a Nazi leader, whatever. They'll want us to come in and save them. They want us to come save them. They'll just step out of the way. We'll just roll right into Kiev. That's what he told his people. And then obviously it was all wrong. His so-called intelligence was wrong, and they love their country and they don't want him there. And so they've been fighting back, and it's been on what most people didn't think would last 6 months has been going on 3.5 years, almost 4 years now. So the only way it's going to end is there's no way Russia's leaving out of there without some type of gains, not for all the people he's lost. Whether, obviously, I understand I mean, that's just such a delicate situation. It's hard. I mean, it is an unwinnable war per se. I don't see how Ukraine, being such a small country, can defeat Russia. And obviously, we don't want to go too far into helping them because if not, Russia will start dropping nuclear weapons. Then you really are at World War III. I'm more worried about Russia starting World War III than I am about Iran. Iran, we could wipe off the face of the map in 10 minutes and not even use a nuclear weapon. I mean, we could defeat them easily. Russia, China, that's who I'm worried about. That's the two countries I'm really worried about. And that's where the Ukraine thing becomes really hard is with the Russia. If it was somebody else other than Russia, I would think we could help Ukraine really quick. But it's all about what Ukraine can afford to, what Putin can be willing to afford to push against, to not what he can do to how much he needs to save face so his people in his orbit don't take him out of power or whatever. Same thing with same reason why Iran's leader fired 14 missiles at our base, but called Qatar and let them know, hey, we're going to fire 14 missiles at the American base in your country at this time, because he controls the media inside his country. So his country is going to see him shooting off these 14 weapons, probably show them some old picture of them making it look like they hit the base, telling them, oh, we struck back, when in reality, he didn't want any Americans hurt because he didn't want us to wipe him out, because he'd already been so bad. His defense systems were already so badly destroyed that we were able to fly in and out of there without them even knowing. And he had to save face for his people because he didn't want the other mullahs or whatever, the other, not the mullahs, but I forgot what they're called, but all of his other leadership or whatever, he didn't want them trying to come in and take him out. He wanted to stay looking like he was strong, even though he's in his late 80s. But, I mean, I'm more worried about Russia coming at us for doing too much with Ukraine than I would have been about Iran. So with Ukraine, I understand both sides. I understand why. It's just that's one of those things where militarily it's a hard juggle. You want to help Ukraine out, but you don't want to start World War III either. I mean, and when you've got a nuclear power like now, obviously Ukraine right now is sitting here going, why did we give up all of our nuclear weapons? Why did we get rid of them? Now, obviously the deal was that's why the Soviet Union let them leave, is because they were willing to give up those weapons but keep nuclear power. But they're probably right now wishing they'd kept all those nuclear weapons, because then Russia would have been less likely to attack them, even though he could have outpowered every single nuclear weapon they had back in the 80s anyways. I mean, Russia's got 2,000, 1,800, 1,900, I think, something like that. We've got 2,800. I think Europe's got a couple hundred. Well, if you take all the European countries, it's like 1,500 nuclear weapons. It's like a couple hundred per country. Russia and China are in the 2,000 range, and then the U.S. is close to 3,000. But yeah, those are I'm worried about those countries. That's the ones I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Iran. I wasn't worried about that starting World War III. And honestly, and I'm not worried about Iran stopping the Strait of Hormuz either, because that hurts their so-called allies more than it hurts us, because all of China's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So China's not going to let Iran block out the Hormuz channel, because they need their oil and gas. So yeah, seriously doubt seeing Iran get that. I very seriously doubt them trying to pull that because of them being with China. So we'll see what happens with I think like I said, if it was something that had been tried back before Russia invaded, or they had first started, maybe it could have been stopped. But now it's on one of those things that's going to have to come down to negotiation. And I mean, we can't afford to keep paying them, spending hundreds of billions of dollars, $1 trillion to give them weapons just to help them straggle along for another month or two or another year. I mean, we're already in enough debt ourselves. We can't just go on forever. So we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously I want it to be done and over with, but we'll see what happens. Who knows? I don't have a dismal understanding of economics. I have a bachelor's degree in finance economics, a MBA with a concentration in project management, and I got my doctorate in law and policy. I understand economics. Just because you subscribe to Keynesian's theory of economics, which got blown apart over this last 3 years, got totally destroyed because the economy went the total opposite of the way Keynesian's theory said it should have. Because according to Keynesian's theory, the government should have been able to spend us out of um uh out of a recession. They should have been able to print money and spend us out of inflation, but nope, they spent us into inflation. They spent us into a recession. So just because I don't subscribe to Keynesian's theory and I subscribe to other economic theories doesn't mean I don't know anything about economics. That just means that you don't agree with the theories in economics that I subscribe to versus Keynesians. It it doesn't totally go up when spending goes up. GDP is you got to look at what side of the GDP you're looking at in the total equation of GDP. Some of it's spending, yes, but also it has to do with the actual businesses in that part of the GDP. Has to do with trade in import and export. Has to do with businesses itself. So the government can't just spend its GDP up to nothing when you've got the other part of the GDP equation too. You got to take the whole equation of GDP. It's not just government spending. I mean, you got to take just like you got to take the whole CPI when you look at the inflation number. The inflation numbers they usually give you are subtracting out a lot of the high inflation stuff. So you got to look at the whole CPI numbers to actually look at what true inflation's at versus because they take out the cost of living and food. They subtract out the cost of living and food on it. I mean, it's GDP is not, you can't just account for spending with GDP only. GDP is both of it. It's gross domestic product of the overall country, not just government spending. It's imports, exports, businesses, taxes, everything. It's the whole GDP equation. I got it somewhere in here. I haven't done the GDP equation since school, but well, since my master's degree, at least, I haven't done a GDP equation. I don't remember. I know I got in here. I know I got one of them around here somewhere. But I don't know. I don't remember what page it was on. I think this is it. Customer segmentation, target markets. It should be on here. Yeah. So I mean, it's more of just that. But the whole problem is it's going to take a holistic approach to get the debt down. It can't just be one. It's not going to, you can't spend our way out of this debt. We've got to cut more than just raising taxes isn't going to solve the issue either. If raising taxes would solve the issue, we would have been out of debt a long time ago. Because if you actually look back to what Clinton did, the last person to balance a budget, who was a Democrat, he cut spending. He cut over 400,000 jobs in the government. Cut spending. Extended Social Security to 60 from 62 to 65. Medicaid and Medicaid too. It took it from 62 to 65. I forgot what other spending cuts they made. They didn't raise taxes. They raised taxes very little. Actually, I think they cut taxes that year. I was young when Clinton did the cuts, but that it wasn't a one way, just, oh, we'll raise taxes and that solves it. It was a holistic budget. It was a holistic budget approach that was bipartisan between Republicans and Democrats. But that's why we had the stuff start coming up about the universal injunctions and stuff, is because since was it the end of the Bush's second term, Democrats decided they were no longer going to work with Republicans, and then Obama's terms, Republicans decided they were no longer going to work with Democrats, and it's just gotten worse and worse since then. The divide's gotten bigger and bigger since then, and that's why presidents are doing so much through executive order these last 2-3 terms, is because we can't get anybody in Congress, Senate, or the House to work together. I mean, they might work together on small stuff, but anything that helps either other side in a major way with a win, they don't want to help each other. Even though that win works for the whole country, they only want that win for them. They would rather destroy the other party and have them not win again than they would for the overall of it. So, I mean, that's where really our biggest problem comes in, is we've got to get Congress and the House to quit being so divided, come back together, and actually start working together. And then maybe, just maybe, we can actually get something, actually get the budget balanced. Maybe we can actually eliminate the deficit, and maybe we can actually start paying down some debt. But it's going to take more than just raising taxes. It's going to take spending cuts. Uh, it's going to take having Social Security not collapse and go insolvent in 2034. It's going to take getting the cost of Medicaid or Medicare down one way or the other, whether that's by making cuts, whether, like I said, whether that's by making medical um, uh, savings in medical cost, treatment cost, um, uh, not really treatment, but word I'm trying to think of, but your care cost, your current, your ongoing treatment cost, not like not because if you cure it, it's a one-time cost. It's that consistent medication, all the medications, having to take those every month to manage it. That's where the major problem is. That's where the major expenses are coming in with it. So that's where we've got to fix it. If we can fix that, then maybe we can actually get a chance to do it. So, I mean, but neither side wants to come together either way. And so it's not going to work with anything like that. I mean, we'll see what happens, but until they decide to, I mean, they couldn't even let Trump have a win on the Iranian attack when that benefits everybody. But yet, you think they're going to let him have a win on a balanced budget and getting rid of the deficit and balancing the budget? Because right now we're doing literally a bill that doesn't require bipartisanship, which is why they're doing it. And to actually do what we need to do to get the budget balanced and everything is going to have to be done through appropriations bills. And those have to be done with a bipartisan vote. They have to have 247 in the Congress, in the House, and 67 in the Senate, which is why for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, more than that, almost, well, actually 12, 14 or 15 years now, we've been every 6 months to a year, we've been looming on a government shutdown because we're literally doing 6 to 8 month continuing resolutions every time. We're not really touching the major parts of the budget because nobody can get an appropriations bill through the House and through the Senate and to a president's desk because nobody will work on it. Nobody will work together to get it done because you have to have either a supermajority in both houses or you have to work together. And that's where the problem with that comes in. So we'll see what happens and if they can actually get it done. I wish they would, but I'm not holding my breath because it's both sides that have screwed up the debt and the deficit. Well, net exports have been, sometimes we've had net exports be close to negative. Why do you think he's been trying to fix the trade deals? But no, if it worked that easy, if it was easy as GDP being balanced to spending, then we raising taxes every time would have increased the GDP, but it doesn't. You raise the taxes, most of the time your GDP ends up dropping some. You lower taxes, your GDP increases because personal spending increases. Because people have more free money, businesses have more money to invest, they have more money to pay their employees, they have more money to grow and produce more. People have more money to buy, so that helps increase GDP. It's not a 1-for-1 ratio. It's sometimes near, but if that was true, then it would have been that way the whole time, and we wouldn't be in the situation we're in if it was a 1-for-1. Well, Keynesian's definition of GDP is not always, like I said, I don't subscribe to Keynesian's theory. I subscribe to the classical theory, which classical theory is different than Keynesian's. And Keynesian is the one that thinks that you can spend your way, government can spend its way out of a debt crisis. Well, if that's true, then why are we still in debt when that's all Biden did the last 4 years was spend, 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 spend. So spending could get us out of the debt crisis. Then why hasn't it? Answer that one, because it hasn't worked. According to Keynesian's theory, when the government started spending, the inflation should have gone down. Inflation went up, not down. It went the opposite way of what Keynesian's theory had. So, I mean, it's that's if it was as simple as an easy 1-to-1, then it would work. But what is works in theory and works in the book doesn't always work in real life. And we've seen that time and time again. I mean, this last 4 years, we've seen it big time. I mean, lately, cross price elasticity and all that has been affecting stuff in different ways than what it usually did. When cross price elasticity, monopoly, and all that's been going in different ways than most have think. So it hasn't been full monopoly; it's been monopolistic, but not full monopolistic. So, and then everything's been a little bit different than. Oh, that's why That's why they're called theories, not laws. They can be broken. They can be changed. They can be affected. That's if it was a law, then that would make sense. But it's a theory. There's a difference. Theories are made to be broken. Laws sometimes, even once in a while, those even get broken. Every once in a while, laws get broken too, but not much. But I don't know. That's about, I don't know where we at. Close to almost an hour now. Yeah, I kind of got off the script, but that's fine. I was really just getting on here. It's the we've got to get this budget passed, no matter how good or how bad it is, because if not, we're going to be looking at a government shutdown. We're going to be looking at another credit downgrade, and that's another thing is they didn't downgrade the credit because they were looking necessarily at the budget thing. The downgrade the credit because we're constantly doing continue budget omnibus bills or continuing resolutions to get us another 3 months, another 6 months, another 2 months. We're consistently having to raise the debt ceiling, and instead of actually doing all 12 appropriations bills through all 12 committees to get a full complete budget done through both a through both House and the Senate as a bipartisan bill. And that's where we're getting shot down at. That's where we're getting that's where we're that's why we got knocked on that. So they knocked they were the last and only one that hadn't downgraded us from a AAA. Everybody else had already downgraded us from a AAA. I think it was 2013 was our last downgrade, and before that it was like 2003 or something like that. We had our first downgrade, which was right before the big which last big run we had, and then we had the thing that was 2013. I can't remember. I'm not looking at that wasn't in my notes today. So, but yeah, so this one has been coming for a while. Moody's was the only one that hadn't downgraded us. They're the only ones that had not given us a downgrade yet. So we'll see what happens. But they've got to get it. It's going to take a bipartisan bill to do anything to actually benefit the budget. And everybody said that, the country was going to collapse, economy's going to collapse because of tariffs and everything like that. Well, looks like Trump knew what he was doing, because now the stock market's back above its record highs. Figures out that a lot of those so-called inflation prices from the tariffs were taken as sunk costs, not being able to pass them to the customer based on price elasticity. So the prices, while some rose, but they didn't rise as much as people thought they were going to because of the price elasticity of the prices. So the manufacturer, the shipping company, had to eat them as a sunk cost. And now even one of the big anti-Trump economists that come out and said it, he goes, well, President Trump may have outsmarted us all on tariffs. And it depends on your long run, short run equilibrium, the competitiveness of the firms. I mean, everything. But I'll have fun. Anybody other than that was on here, other than I guess For anybody who's on, please follow, like, share, subscribe. I got to get going. Got to get to, we got movie night with the kids. So y'all have a good night, and hopefully I'll see y'all next time. I'll be back here. On here at least. I should be back on here either Sunday or Monday this week. And then after this next week, I'll be on, it'll be every Sunday, Monday, and Friday for sure. I might throw some extra days in there just because I'm trying to see which days work best as far as viewers and viewer counts and people that are actually on YouTube or Twitch or Rumble at that time. But y'all have a good night and look forward to talking to y'all again.